There's a version of you that was supposed to step into the next thing 2 years ago. That version was supposed to learn something new, build something different, lead from a different place, teach what you couldn't teach from where you were. That person isn't waiting for you on the other side of this. That person is gone. Because you can't become who you were supposed to be if you're still performing a version of yourself that stopped fitting 3 years ago. You're not being patient. You're trading becoming for staying. And every year you make that trade, the cost goes up. I'm Clarence E. Stowers, Jr., 30 years in. I've built things from nothing and watched them come apart. I've stood in rooms where there was no good answer and found a way through anyway. This is still standing. I don't teach from theory. I teach from survival. Let's get into it. Hey, you knew. You knew before you admitted it. You knew before you told anyone. You knew the moment things shifted, even if you couldn't name exactly what shifted. But you stayed. I'm not going to shame you for that. I'm going to be honest about what it cost you because nobody else is going to say it. Before we go an inch further, let me welcome you in. I'm Clarence Edward Stowers, Jr. This is Still Standing. The show for those who are still here, still believing, still building something, even on the days walking away would be easier. If this is your first time with me, here's how we do it. No hype, no performance, no pretending. We say the thing out loud, we sit with it honestly, and we find the next right step together. So wherever you are right now, in the car, on a walk, on the treadmill, working out, sitting somewhere you didn't want to be today, thank you for these next few minutes. Take a deep breath and get honest with me. Because we're about to name what you've been carrying quietly for a long time. Let's start there. I know what this looks like from the inside because I stayed in a commitment I had already outgrown. My name was still on it, so I kept showing up after it stopped holding anything together for me. I told myself it was loyalty. Well, it wasn't loyalty. It was the fear of what things falling apart would say about me. The moment I finally knew was simple. I was exhausted in a way sleep didn't touch. And I asked myself one honest question. What am I actually holding up here? The answer landed hard. I wasn't holding anything up. I was just standing under it so it wouldn't hit the ground. Because the ground felt like my failure. Come to the front of the class. See, staying does not announce itself. Do you know that? When you stay too long, it doesn't announce itself. There's no signal, no alarm, no text alert, no alarm you can set on your phone, no day that says today you've outstayed. It happens in gaps between what you say in public and what you feel in private. Let me show you what I mean. There was a season I would sit in meetings and realize halfway through that I had stopped caring about the outcome. Not because the work didn't matter. It mattered. But I was no longer the person who could move it forward. I was just the person whose name was still on it. I would leave those meetings and tell myself I was tired, that I needed a break, that once things slowed down, I would feel it again. But things never slowed down, and I never felt it again. Because the issue wasn't the pace. The issue was that I had already moved on internally, and I was pretending I hadn't. That's what staying looks like from the inside. You're still showing up, still doing the work, still saying the right things, but someone underneath all of that, you know you're in the past season. You just haven't admitted it out loud yet. You stay because you built it. You stay because leaving looks like giving up. You stay because you told people you were committed, and walking away feels like making yourself a liar. None of those reasons are wrong. But none of them are reasons to keep staying, and I already know what's forming in your head right now. Here's what you're telling yourself. See, but I made a commitment. People are counting on me. This is not the right time. If I leave now, what does that say about me? That's not commitment talking. That's the conversation you've been avoiding, wearing commitment's face. Because here's what's true. Your commitment to what you were built to do isn't the same thing as commitment to the structure you've been doing it in. You can be fully committed to the mission, the vision, and still acknowledge that the container stopped serving it. The calling can still be real. The season can still be over. Staying in the wrong container isn't loyalty, it's just staying. The longer you stay, the higher the invoice get. That's right. Today's price is not yesterday's price. And what that invoice actually costs you is more specific than you're ready to hear. Lean in for a moment, because I want to share what staying too long actually costs you. Here's the cost. It costs you the person you're supposed to become. Every year you stay past your real contribution is a year that version of you doesn't get to exist. Not someday, not in theory, actually doesn't exist. There's a version of you that was supposed to step into the next thing 2 years ago. That version was supposed to learn something new, build something different, lead from a different place, teach what you couldn't teach from where you were. That person isn't waiting for you on the other side of this. That person is gone. Because you can't become who you were supposed to be if you're still performing a version of yourself that stopped fitting 3 years ago. You're not being patient. You're trading becoming for staying. And every year you make that trade, the cost goes up. Today's price ain't yesterday's price. Here's what it costs you. Not only does it cost you the person you were supposed to become, additionally, it costs the people who needed that version of you. The one you're supposed to lead, the one you're supposed to teach, the one you're supposed to walk through something they can't get through alone. They're still waiting because you're managing a chapter that was supposed to close. There's someone out there right now who needs exactly what you learned in the season you're staying past, but they can't get it from you because you're still stuck in the place you were supposed to lead. You think you're being faithful to the people in front of you, but the people in front of you aren't the only people who need you. And the version of you that's exhausted, resentful, and going through the emotion isn't the version they signed up for either. And it costs the work you already did. When you stay past your time, you stop doing your best work and start doing maintenance. You stop leading and start managing. You stop building and start protecting. The people around you feel it. They just can't name it, but they feel it. They feel it in the way you show up to meetings, the way you respond to new ideas, the way you talk about the future. You're not excited anymore. You're just holding on, maintaining, going through just to get through. And that slow fade reaches back and touches everything you built before it started. Because the way you leave shapes how people remember what you did. And right now, you're not leaving, you're fading. And fading doesn't honor what you built. It just makes people wonder if it was ever as strong as they thought it was. Before we go further, there's one question that exposes everything. Come to the front of the class, because the question at the center of this episode hinges on this. Not what you're going to do next, not how you're going to explain the transition, just this. What are you still pretending is working? Not for everyone else, for you. Alone, at 6 a.m., before the day starts and you're not performing for anyone. You already have an answer. You've had it longer than you've admitted. You haven't moved on it because you know exactly what it's going to require. The conversation you've been putting off. The identity you're going to have to let go of. The version of yourself that was attached to this thing. You're not stuck. You just know what the exit costs. And every day you don't pay it, the cost goes up. Today's price ain't yesterday's price. So what is it? Once you have that answer, you need to understand the difference between two things that look from the outside. Come to the front of the class so I can tell you what they are. Enduring and staying are not the same thing. Before you shut this episode off and tell yourself, I don't understand your situation. Let me be clear about something. Enduring and staying are not the same. I'm not telling you to quit every hard thing. I'm telling you to know the difference between a hard thing that's forming you and a hard thing that's just hard. You ready? Enduring is when the difficulty is producing something. The resistance is building you, preparing you, stretching you in a way that matters. You can feel it, not every day, but over time you can look back and see that the plan had a purpose. You're learning something you couldn't have learned any other way. You're becoming someone you couldn't have become without this. The weight is real, but so is the growth. That's enduring. That's a calling. That's worth staying for. Additionally, not only is enduring when the difficulty is producing something, consequently, staying is when the difficulty stopped producing anything. You're not growing. The mission's not advancing. You're tired in a way rest doesn't fix. And if you're honest, the only reason you're still there is because leaving is harder than staying. Not because the work still needs you, not because you're still the right person for it, but because the exit requires a conversation you don't want to have, an identity you don't want to let go of, a version of yourself you've been holding on to because letting it go feels like admitting you were wrong. That's not enduring. That's staying. And staying is not a calling, it's a habit. So here's the question. Is what you're holding on to still forming you? Or are you holding on because letting go requires a conversation you keep deciding you will have later? Because if it's the second one, I need you to hear this clearly. You've been deciding later for a while now. And every time you choose later, the cost of leaving goes up. Today's price ain't yesterday's price. The resentment builds. The exhaustion deepens, and the version of you that was supposed to step into the next thing gets further away. You're not enduring, you're staying, and it's time to call it what it is. So here's what you do with it. Before the end of this week, write down the one thing you're staying in past its time. One thing, not a list. The first thing that surfaced when I said staying. Then write one sentence under it. What am I afraid will happen if I leave? Not what you tell people, what you actually believe will happen. That sentence is the real reason you're still there. Not the mission, not the commitment, not the people counting on you, the thing you're afraid of. Name it. Because what you're afraid will happen if you leave is almost never as true as you think it is. And what you're giving up by staying is almost always more costly than you're willing to admit. One thing before you decide to close this episode. And this one thing is the bravest thing you can do right now. You're not weak for staying. You stayed because you take commitment seriously, because you built something real, and leaving felt like betraying it because you're not a quitter and you never have been. But here's what's also true. The version of you that's tired of pretending this is working deserves to be heard, not dismissed, not managed, not told to wait one more season. No, it needs to be heard. And the only way that version of you gets heard is if you stop performing commitment and start naming what you're actually afraid of. Because staying past your season is not commitment, it's fear wearing commitment's clothes. And the bravest thing you can do right now isn't to have all the answers. It's not to know exactly what comes next. It's not to figure out the perfect exit plan before you are allowed to admit the truth. The bravest thing you can do is write one sentence. What am I afraid will happen if I leave? That's it. That's the move. Not next month, not when things slow down, this week. Because the moment you name the fear and the moment it stops controlling the decision, you can finally see what staying is actually costing you. You already know the answer. Now you have to decide what to do with it. So what's next? What do you do next? Here's your next move before the end of this week. Step 1. Write down the one thing you are staying past its season. First thing that surfaced when I said staying, don't make a list, just name one. Step 2. Under it, write one sentence. What I'm afraid will happen if I leave. Not what you tell people, what you actually believe will happen. That sentence is the real reason you're still there. Step 3. Share that sentence with one person who can hold it without judgment. Not someone who will fix it, not someone who will tell you what to do, someone who will just let you say it out loud and not make you smaller for saying it. And then reply to this episode. Type the word done and send it. I want to know you're naming it. Because once you name it, the next move will show up. Because you can't see the next move until you name the one you're avoiding. Don't wait. The cost of waiting just went up again. Today's price ain't yesterday's price. Oh my goodness. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me. These last few minutes have been magical and amazing. Thank you for getting honest with me. If this episode landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's still standing in a place they already know they were supposed to leave. Reach out to them. Tell them, yo, you need to hear this. I'm Clarence Stowers. This is Still Standing. Subscribe wherever you listen. Get 1% better every day, and I'll see you next week. That's it for Still Standing. If this landed, subscribe now, wherever you're listening, and text this episode to one person who's still standing in something hard. They need to hear it. I'll see you next week.